I spent the last 90 days building a handmade wardrobe, and what I learned during that process changed everything for me. I didn't sew every single day of those 90 days, but I did sew consistently, and I think that was the biggest part of what helped me in my making progress. I started sewing clothes for myself about 2.5, almost 3 years ago. My first couple of tops that I made that were a success were at the beginning of 2023. I would try something, maybe it wouldn't work out, and there would be a gap in time, and then I would try something else. And eventually I started making more things because I was starting to see more success with it. However, I was noticing this year I would keep sewing stuff, but I wasn't necessarily wearing those things. And so I decided, well, maybe if I just give myself permission by saying I'm doing this 90-day project and I'm going to document it on YouTube, and I'll have a bunch of accountability partners, that's you, then it'll force me actually to follow through and make those things rather than finding reasons not to, if you know what I mean. I started making these clothes, and not everything was perfect by any stretch, but some were actually starting to come close as I was going through the process, which was just like so fabulous, so amazing. I consider myself definitely not a super experienced sewist, although I just finished making 22 garments, so I really leveled up in that time. But I believe that the consistency of showing up, making clothes during those 90 days is what really helped me build upon my skills and give me the confidence that rather than going out and buying something, which I could still do, but every time I look at things now, I think, I bet I could make that, or I bet I could make something similar, or I bet I could even make it better or to suit me better, whether it's the sleeve length or the fit of the top or the length on the arms or the length on the trousers. So I think ultimately at the moment I've got like my sojo is just really high and I will keep working through this process. But I did notice that I leveled up in a big way. One of the biggest areas where I saw an improvement was in actually how the garments were finished. When I first started sewing, I didn't bother doing anything. I even had a serger, but I wasn't actually consistently finishing the seams. And even when I started the 90-day project, there are some garments behind me. Here's everything I made. There are garments that still have some of the seams unfinished, and when they go through the wash, they're starting to unravel. And I noticed by the end, I was really taking care to make sure those things were done properly and so that they'll last. And so I'll be able to enjoy them for much longer and not necessarily have to go back and fix them as I have had to do in the past. I also became less afraid of using the seam ripper and fixing things as I was going along. A lot of the times I was trying to make a wearable toile or a test garment, hoping that it would ultimately be great and I'd be able to wear it. By doing that, it forced me to actually go back as I was going along. If I made a mistake, go fix something. If the fit wasn't right, try fixing that. I have a lot of examples of that through this process, but I think that was a really good thing. I have a wrap skirt that I made where I had previously made it, so to me, I should have just been able to knock it out, and I ended up having to take the waistband off 3 times and do some alterations to it to make it fit better. And I'm really glad I did because I've actually been getting quite a bit of wear out of that one. I also learned how to better use my serger, so that's been really nice. And I've been changing needles and thread on it. It takes a little while sometimes, but I've become less afraid in a way of doing that. I also tried out some new techniques with my sewing machine, including using a special needle for doing some specialty stitches. I investigated and started sewing with some elastic thread to help make my knit sewing experience better. I also started to see what I really liked to wear, what styles I was reaching for more often, what fabrics I preferred over others, and I definitely found that I was reaching more for most of the knit garments that I made, even if they weren't perfect, because with my work from home lifestyle, that's just a lot more comfortable. And I was even able to make a lot of those knits in such a way that they're more dressy so that I could wear them out of the house and look really put together. So I enjoyed that a lot. I still have a ways to go with perfecting how I sew knits. I'm not going to say that any of them are necessarily perfect, but they are far superior to when I first started sewing them. So I think that's a great win. By giving myself this 90-day parameter and also insisting that I only sew for my stash, because I had accumulated, I bought a lot of fabric and I wasn't necessarily sewing with it, or at least not sewing with it at the same rate that I was purchasing it. So I put a stop on buying fabric during this period of time. I think the limitation there was a very good thing. One, it forced me to look at the things I was buying, take note of the fabric that I'm just not crazy about anymore, to better think about what I'm actually going to purchase. So whether that's purchasing from a particular palette of color that I am preferring to wear right now or reaching for more often, or fabric that I really like to sew or that I find that is more successful for me. Obviously, I really like sewing knits, but I realized that I really like sewing more stable knits. So like this Ponte dress here, this black dress, I thought it turned out really, really good, and it came together very quickly. I like wearing it. It was easy to sew, and so I know that in the future, I will definitely look towards sewing more of this type of fabric. For the woven fabric that I sewed, I experimented with some different ones. I sewed with eyelet, I sewed with rayon, this little top here, which was, the intent is for it to be a pajama top, but I thought it was kind of fun to wear today with this dress. This is a cotton lawn and a cotton poplin in the black, and those were all great to sew with. The garments turned out really nice. I would say sewing with the slippery rayon fabrics or more slippery fabrics is more of a challenge, but I think I am now better equipped to actually be able to handle them. So I just turned 50, and this 90-day project was sort of a gift to myself to sew a handmade wardrobe before I turned 50. I didn't get there as far as completing all the garments that I was intending to do, but I did make a lot. And I think through that process, I started to really identify the types of silhouettes that I like, the colors that I like. I had previously purchased, I had a lot of pink in my stash, which I think I still like to wear, but I would like to go for more vivid colors in the future. I'm really loving this red. I was never a person who would buy red clothing in the past. I just didn't think it was a good color for me, but I'm really loving it. I hope to add more red garments in the future. I also think sewing basics has been really successful for me, that even though I can go buy those things, I can really customize them to what I want or need. Like this simple long sleeve black t-shirt dress just turned out to be exactly what I wanted when I was wanting to sew it, and I had just happened to have the fabric in my stash to be able to sew it with, and I think that was just a really, really fun thing to do. I do love sewing special occasion garments, but I think in general for my lifestyle now, I don't have as many special occasions in my life, but if I can find a way to marry daily outfits with things for like leaving the house or for those special occasions, if I can find things that I can mix and match with, or find ways to dress up the more casual outfits like through jewelry or scarves or things like that, I think that's where all of my makes can be more successful and more worn. Normally, I very much like a more fitted garment in the waist with maybe an A-line type skirt or something that's a little slimmer going down, but I was starting to gravitate towards more billowy type garments on top, or bigger sleeves, wider waistlines, and I think that's just been a lot of fun to experiment with and try out, just see what I like. And the thing is, a lot of these, if it didn't work out, I could go back and tweak it and make it work better. So I think that's been just a lot of fun too. I think some of the favorite pieces, and there were actually quite a few favorite pieces that I ended up sewing, and I started the project in like high summer here. It was really hot and I had like no plans of sewing anything for cold weather. And then the weather changed and then I found myself sewing more colder weather items. So I think the 90-day project wardrobe actually is kind of a half and half mix of warm weather things and cold weather things. So they've all gotten used to varying degrees. I would say my most favorite makes would be a sweater dress I made from Friday Pattern Company. That's the Collins dress. I think that turned out great. It was done in a sweater knit, but it was more stable. It wasn't as stretchy. So when I was sewing the hem, it didn't stretch out, that kind of thing. And it also had the fun technique of doing the burrito method where you're making a really nice clean finish on the armholes, the neck, and then doing the burrito method to do the armholes. And that was a lot of fun to do and learn how to do better. I think I'd only done it previously once. I also really like this black test dress from Chalk and Notch. I think it just was a really quick make. It is a little on the snugger side. I wish I'd gone up a size, but it still works because it's nice and stretchy. And it's just a really good basic. I haven't worn it a ton yet, but I expect to. And I think it can be coordinated with different cardigans or jackets and with different shoes. Like right now I'm wearing a pair of boots with it. Something else that I noticed as I was going through this project is that I started wearing more of my older Me Mades and things that I just kind of forgotten about or abandoned. That's been a lot of fun. What's been nice about it is it's given me an opportunity to see that even those early garments that weren't grand by any stretch, weren't made very well, still can be very functional and very beautiful. So I would say if you're just starting out in your sewing journey, but you have hopes of making beautiful clothes, you can do it. I think finding obviously the right patterns and the right fabrics to suit those patterns is going to go a long way for you, but you don't need really expensive equipment. I have a pretty inexpensive sewing machine. The serger that I have is the one that probably most people have. It's like the basic entry-level serger, and it's working just fine. The notions I have, I do buy Gutermann thread because my understanding is that that's among the better thread brands to use, but it's not super expensive to purchase. A lot of my fabric that I've purchased has mostly been on sale. I found the places that I've purchased from have mostly been online, and I was also purchasing a lot from Joann's before they closed. We do not have a lot of other local fabric stores to go to, but there is one that I will make the trek to. It just requires a bit of driving and a bit of a time commitment when I do go there, but it's really cool that I can find some pretty good deals there when I do go. If you're starting out, I think you can definitely find fabric that will fit within your budget. And obviously there are a lot of people that are very good at thrifting, whether they're finding fabric at thrift stores or just using older sheets that they have. That is not an area that I've really ventured into too much, but I'm thinking that I'd like to do that. I did recently go to an antique store where they had some European textiles and some fabrics and ribbons and buttons and things like that, but it was all pretty expensive for my purposes anyway. So I didn't make a purchase, but it was fun to look at and just see what's out there. Another area that was very helpful in sewing during this 90-day project was that I was sewing a lot of repeat patterns. So either patterns I had previously sewed, or I would sew a pattern multiple times, like with the pajama pants that I made. I think that is an area where if you're not looking to spend a lot of money on patterns, but you can find the right pattern company for you that's a good fit, either for your body or for your aesthetic, I would say, I could actually probably pick one or two pattern companies to sew all the time, and then with different hacks and even just varying the fabric for those patterns, I can make them look very different, and that to me is a lot of fun and just shows how wonderful and versatile making your own clothes can be. I would also say that sewing this handmade wardrobe during this last 90 days has really given me a lot of confidence in not only my sewing, but how I present myself to the world. It felt like when I made something that I was really proud of, I probably was strutting around with, an extra level of, haha, here I am. I would say if you're considering sewing a handmade wardrobe, or even thinking of just making a few items, it is just such a lovely and rewarding hobby that's also very practical. And I love that something that I get joy out of in terms of the making process is something that I can also get joy out of in the use part of it too. So in the actual wearing of it. And I love that. I feel like I can mentally say, yes, you can spend money on your hobby because you're actually going to get use out of it. So what's next? So yes, my sojo, if you couldn't tell, is like really high right now. All I've wanted to do for a while now is just continue to make clothes. I love it so much. I will say that this project, though, has shown me that I really do have everything I need. I have almost completely stopped buying clothes for myself during this time. I don't really see that changing too much because every time I go look at something to buy, I think, man, I could just make it myself. and I'm having a hard time actually pulling the trigger. So that is very interesting given that I was like a former clothes-aholic. Every season I was buying a lot of new clothes and donating clothes that I no longer wanted to wear. So for me to go from buying lots of clothes throughout the year to buying hardly any, and actually during this last 90 days, I did buy one pair of pants and I kind of hate them. So that really just showed that there's just something about it right now. Just, right now, it doesn't mean it'll be forever, and there may be things that I'll need in the future or want in the future that I feel like I'm just not really in the mood to make, but I may go buy. Maybe it's something like a coat, or I don't know, it could be anything. Maybe a pair of jeans. But right now, I would like to try and make most of, if not all of the things that I'm wearing or wanting to wear. It's made me realize that, yes, I have all that I could possibly need. I don't need a dozen of every single item that I want to wear. So where am I going from here? So I am actively sewing right now. I have a dress on my sewing table right behind the camera that is in process. I was hoping to finish it today. We'll see if I have time or not, but I will finish it within the next few days, I think. And I think it's just gonna be a real standout in my wardrobe, and I'm looking forward to finishing it. I have also finished 2 new makes that are peeking out behind me. I finished a work in progress that I hadn't finished in time to unveil it as a finished garment for the 90-day handmade wardrobe finale video that I've posted on my channel, but I've since made that. So that is this one here. So this is the Adrian top from Friday Pattern Company. I have sewn this top multiple times, and this particular version gave me some trouble. I was trying to sew it quickly right before a trip, and everything that could go wrong did go wrong. But when I gave myself a little bit of time, it didn't take much time to actually finish it. I had to shorten up the elastic on the arms here so that it wasn't falling off my shoulders. I had to finish the sleeves and then finish the hem on it. This is made out of a Ponte fabric, which I mentioned earlier that I really like sewing with, and I can see myself making more of these. I think I have sewn this 1, 2, 3, but it's lovely if you haven't made it. It's an older pattern, but it's a goodie. So yes, so I am continuing to sew like a mad woman, I feel like, but I'm just enjoying it so much. I have purchased some new patterns, and I'm trying out some new pattern companies that I haven't previously sewn with before. And so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I have a big trip planned coming up where I'm going to be sewing some garments for some special occasion type events that we'll be going to as part of that trip. So I'm looking forward to that. I'd also like to do some pattern drafting of my own. So I've done just a bare minimum, and that would be just like doing a little gathered skirt where I'm just using my measurements to come up with the actual fabric with, like, for doing a gathered skirt with tiers and for the elastic and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to working more towards being able to really make my own garment that I can wear that based on just my measurements alone. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I will also be starting a new handmade wardrobe series here on this channel that'll be coming soon, and so I will be unveiling that project in the coming weeks, and I'm really looking forward to that because I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and it'll be different from the 90-day handmade wardrobe project. Hopefully I'll be able to explore some new areas of sewing that I haven't experienced yet. So if you've ever been on a sewing streak like I have, or you're thinking about doing something like that, I would love to read about that in the comments. So please drop me a comment and share that with everyone who's reading them. And I would just like to say thank you again to everyone who has followed along on this journey. It has been so much fun for me to be able to do this and share it with you all. So thank you again. If you are not subscribed, I'd appreciate that if you would do that, and so that you can be notified of upcoming videos and follow along on my process as I continue to work through this wonderful and joyful hobby. Thanks again. Bye.